Hi everyone, thank you for coming back to my channel. In this video, I will talk about the elite plans of the population and a few of them that behind the Planned Parenthood and all the false flags depopulation events. Okay, let's get started. Eugenics and the depopulation agenda. The Illuminati's idea of population control falls into two broad categories. Number one, limiting the size of human societies and monitoring, controlling the movements of individuals within that society. And number two, intentionally reducing the bulk of the world's population through genocide via the introduction of population slaughter, orchestrated conflicts, and lethal bioengineered disease organisms introduced via vaccines and other means of external transmission. Eugenics, population control, New World Order style. It is a term coined in the latter part of the 19th century by Englishman Francis Galton to describe the science of bettering human stock and the elimination of unwanted characteristics and individuals. Galton proposed societal intervention for the furtherance of racial equality, maintaining that Jews are specialized for a parasitical existence upon other nations, and that except by sterilization, I cannot yet see any way of checking the produce of the unfit who are allowed their liberty and are below the reach of moral system control. The very word eugenics is in disrepute in some quarters. We must ask ourselves, what have we done wrong? I think we have failed to take into account a trait which is almost universal and is very deep in human nature. People simply are not willing to accept the idea that the genetic base on which their character was formed is inferior and should not be repeated in the next generation. We have asked whole groups of people to accept this idea and have asked individuals to accept it. They have constantly refused, and we have all but killed the eugenic movement. They won't accept the idea that they are in general second rate. We must rely on other motivation. It is surely possible to build a system of voluntary unconscious selection, but the reasons advanced must be generally acceptable reasons. Let's stop telling anyone that they have a generally inferior genetic quality, for they will never agree. Let's base our proposals on the desirability of having children born in homes where they will get affectionate and responsible care, and perhaps our proposals will be accepted. Formally established as a study at University College in London in 1904, the first laboratory for the study of the subject was constructed by Charles B. Davenport at Cold Springs Harbor on Long Island, which perhaps significantly was also the location of the estates of both Dulles brothers as well as the current headquarters of Human Genome Organization for DNA mapping. The institute was funded in excess of $11 million by the Harrimans and Rockefellers, supported in America by the Eastern establishment. Eugenics was nurtured in the hotbeds of roundtable influenced philosophy at Harvard, Columbia, and Cornell. The subject was popularized in Germany by Ernst Haeckel, who linked romantic German nature mysticism and the unity of the Volk with clinical biopolicies later instituted by Hitler. The morphological differences between two generally recognized species. For example, sheep and goats are much less important than those between a Hottentot and a man of the Teutonic race. In the Aryan race, Haeckel saw a symmetry of all parts and that equal development which we call the perfect human beauty. He also believed the woolly-haired peoples incapable of true inner culture or of a higher mental development. No woolly-haired nation has ever had an important history. The Nazi Party in Germany passed in 1933 the law for the prevention of hereditary disease in posterity, also known as the sterilization law, written by Professor Ernst Rudin, one of the country's leading psychiatrists. Hereditary health courts were formed, and within 3 years, 225,000 German undesirables have been sterilized. Hitler's policies have been characterized as a rather straightforward form of German social Darwinism. Far from being original with him, his policies were expansions upon already extant political and scientific culture. By 1939, German policies had evolved to include euthanasia upon asylum inmates, while eugenics concepts were implemented to the fullest in Nazi concentration camps during World War II. In 1942, U.S. psychiatrist Foster Kennedy recommended the killing of retarded children during the 3-year period between 1941 to 1943. Over 42,000 people were sterilized in America. After World War II, the idea of eugenics was tainted in the public by its association with Nazism. The term was discarded and a facelift was performed on its parents' study psychiatry, which resulted in the establishment of the World Federation of Mental Health. Since then, this group has continued to support electroshock, lobotomization, mind control, and other activities already detailed, as well as employing within its ranks many German practitioners who had been happy to further Hitlerian goals during the Second World War. What this brief survey shows is something the popular press has chosen to ignore. Eugenics programs were not the inventions of mad Nazi scientists, but that the political climate of Germany allowed a full implementation of programs part and parcel of international psychiatry and medicine. Recent programs aimed at abortion and other methods of depopulation can be traced to essentially the same Freemasonic Roundtable Rothschild-spawned crowd, to the studies of the Club of Rome, the Trilateral Commission, and to the CFR. These groups influenced a change in U.S. policies, specifically during 1966 to 67, when population control was adopted by the State Department as a stated goal. The recent world population push retains the flavor of eugenics biopolicy of the first half of this century in the statements of advocates such as the Eastern establishments such as Shriver. Speaking before the Congressional Select Committee on Population in 1978. This committee's interest is in improving the quality of life and enhancing the biological product of this society, rather than just controlling and limiting births. It is odd that little mention of the overall decline in fertility finds its way into Rockefeller subsidized literature of depopulation activists. Nor was the fact that teenage pregnancy was at its lowest ebb in 40 years brought up when federally mandated family planning and sex education in schools was enacted in 1978. Studies have shown that sex education classes increase early sexual experimentation while doing nothing to reduce adolescent pregnancy. It has also been demonstrated that when such classes are discontinued, as in Utah in 1980, the incidence of teenage pregnancy decreases. Still, officials insist that sex classes should extend from kindergarten throughout a person's educational career. Why? Originators and administrators of the programs candidly admit that their agenda includes depopulation and eugenics. Dr. Jane Hodgson at the National Abortion Federation conference in 1980 was even more forthright, calling for compulsory abortion for pregnant teenagers. The methods of sex education programs in public schools vary, but uniformly emphasize the huge expense and drawbacks of having kids, providing summaries of methods of contraception, sterilization, and abortion. Students are often taken on tours of birth control clinics where they meet the staff, fill out patients' forms, and are assured of the confidentiality of services. Children are also recruited as depopulation activists with pitches informing them, as in widely used texts, meeting yourself halfway. The population problem is very serious and involves every country on this planet. What steps would you encourage to help resolve the problem? Volunteer to organize birth control information centers throughout the country. Join a pro-abortion lobbying group. Encourage the limitation of 2 children per family and have the parents sterilized to prevent further births. Much of the sex education literature portrays the nuclear family, long a cohesive political and social glue among the populace, as obsolete and statistically insignificant, while the normalcy of homosexuality and bachelorism, playboyism is stressed. Children are encouraged to report in detail on conditions at home, to report parental shortcomings, and to divulge disagreements they have with their parents, opening the door to intervention by social services. Davies in Economic Development and Cultural Change says that an effective strategy in lowering the birth rate is to lessen the identity of children with parents or lessen the likelihood that this identity will be satisfying, adding that certain trends that might bring population levels down are very high: divorce rates, homosexuality, pornography, and free sexual unions. Davies sees a positive note in the child welfare services, which have increasingly tended to displace the father as a necessary member of the family, and the health services, which have increasingly floated parental authority with respect to contraception and abortion. This flouting of parental authority is a familiar theme in sex education classes, which repeatedly emphasize the child's independence from their parents and their ability to make decisions for themselves. The message to children provided by proponents of sex education without the courtesy of having the parents agree upon it is obvious. The world is awash in excess poor population, and something has to be done about it in a hurry, starting at the nearest abortion clinic. Educator John Tyler Gatto, voted New York's top teacher of 1991, further comments on the mechanisms. Social machinery to suppress proliferation of systematic families has two components. 1. A campaign aimed at family formation before it commences, employing such tactics as encouragement of personal greed, best enjoyed in bachelor style, of course, public pornographic celebrations of the body parts of newborn young women, effortless divorce, mass adoption, tolerance of sexual ambiguity, and many similar tactics. The second component aims at producing pseudo families, small households, whether biological or synthetic, without any overriding royalty to the common family cause. Instead, these are associations of expedients wearing the costume of affection and concern, but always on the lookout for a better deal. During the childhood phase, parents in pseudo families are made use of by the state to transmit certain values, to maintain and discipline a field class composed of their own children, and to report radical cases of deviance to medical police and retraining authorities. It is a system infused in many places with such black genius in understanding crowd control. It is hard not to stand it out of its unseen architects. The secret, now declassified paper NSSM 200, Implications of Worldwide Population Growth for U.S. Security and Overseas Interests, also known as the Scarecrow document, authored by the CFR's Brent Scarecrow, gives insight into U.S. government plans for population reduction intentionally, linking these plans to goals that have very little to do with alleviating human suffering and everything to do with the maximization of profit. Prepared in 1974 for the National Security Council, and remember, this is a government document, although one not likely to be offered for free in late-night public service announcements. NSSM 200 proposes means for the reduction of worldwide population by concentration on key third world countries, with the state goal of reduction of population growth rate from an annual 2% growth to 1.7%. While this might sound like an altruistic goal proposed by clear-sighted social stewards intended to reduce suffering in countries with marginal standards of living, the study makes it clear that government interest in depopulation has nothing to do with concern for living standards in developing countries. It is because the United States has become increasingly dependent on mineral imports from developing countries, and endemic famine, food riots, and breakdown of social order are scarcely inducive to systematic exploration for mineral deposits or the long-term investments necessary for their exploration. Notes that the breakdown of social order referred to consists of the populace revolting against their living conditions. One of the conclusions of the study is that mandatory population control measures may be appropriate. Santana reported that include in World Bank credit packages and investment in third world countries is an implicit agenda of depopulation, and questioned why Brazil was targeted for birth reduction, with approximately 40% of Brazilian women having been already sterilized. What the depopulators omit saying is that in Brazil, most of the depopulation programs are being directed toward the native population, and that they are implementing an alternative program to the pistoleros hired to attack small land-owning families appropriating the land for the use of large cash croppers and the international conglomerates that are stripping the country bare. Depopulation programs run worldwide are directed and funded by major international money interests, including George Bundy of the CFR, the architect of nuclear mutual assured destruction policy, Warren E. Buffett, the second wealthiest man in the United States, and ubiquitous when it comes to eugenics funding, the Rockefellers. Planned Parenthood Federation of America and International Planned Parenthood Federation Buffett funded and run a huge abortion and sterilization network worldwide, with one subsidiary, the Brazil Society for Family Welfare, having over 2,500 outlets in that country. Bill Gates, Monsanto, and Eugenics. How one of the world's wealthiest men is actively promoting a corporate takeover of global agriculture. After it was exposed that the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, philanthropic brainchild of Microsoft founder Bill Gates, purchased 500,000 shares in Monsanto back in year 2010, valued at more than $23 million. It became abundantly clear that this so-called benevolent charity is up to nothing more other than eradicating disease and feeding the world's poor. It turns out that the Gates family legacy has long been one of trying to dominate and control the world system, including in the areas of technology, medicine, and now agriculture. The Gates Foundation, aka the tax-exempt Gates Family Trust, is currently in the process of spending billions of dollars in the name of humanitarianism to establish a global food monopoly dominated by genetically modified GM crops and seeds. And based on the Gates family's history of involvement in world affairs, it appears that one of its main goals, besides simply establishing corporate control of the world's food supply, is to reduce the world's population by a significant amount in the process. William H. Gates, Sr., former head of Eugenics Group, Planned Parenthood. Bill Gates' father, William H. Gates, Sr., has long been involved with the Eugenics Group Planned Parenthood, a rebranded organization birthed out of the American Eugenics Society. In a 2003 interview with PBS Bill Moyers, Bill Gates admitted that his father used to be the head of Planned Parenthood, which was funded on the concept that most human beings are just reckless breeders and human weeds in need of cooling. Gates also admitted during the interview that his family's involvement in reproductive issues throughout the years has been extensive, referencing his own prior adherence to the beliefs of eugenicist Thomas Robert Malthus, who believed that populations of the world need to be controlled through reproductive restrictions. Though Gates claims he now holds a different view, it appears as though his foundation's initiatives are just a modified Malthusian approach that much more discreetly reduces populations through vaccines and GMOs. Gates Foundation has invested heavily in converting Asian African agricultural systems to GMOs. William Gates Sr.'s association with Planned Parenthood and continued influence in the realm of population and reproductive health is significant because Gates Sr. is co-chair of the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. This long-time eugenicist. The Gates Foundation has admittedly given at least $264.5 million in grant commitments to AGRA and also reportedly hired Dr. Robert Hosch, a former Monsanto executive for 25 years who developed Roundup to head up AGRA back in year 2006, according to a report published in La Via Campesina back in year 2010. 70% of AGRA's guarantees in Kenya work directly with Monsanto, and nearly 80% of the Gates Foundation funding is devoted to biotechnology. The same report explains that the Gates Foundation pledged $880 million in April 2010 to create the Global Agriculture and Food Security Program, which is a heavy promoter for GMOs. Of course, was responsible for providing $35 million in aid to earthquake-shattered Haiti to be used for implementing GMO agriculture systems and technologies. Back in year 2003, the Gates Foundation invested $25 million in GM, genetically modified research to develop vitamin and protein-enriched seeds for the world's poor, a move that many international charities and farmers groups vehemently opposed. And in year 2008, the Gates Foundation awarded $26.8 million to Cornell University to research GM wheat, which is the next major food crop in the crosshairs of Monsanto's GM food crop pipeline. If you control agriculture, you control the populations of the world. The Gates Foundation's ties with Monsanto and corporate agriculture in general speak volumes about its real agenda, which is to create a monopolistic system of world control in every area of human life. Vaccines, pharmaceuticals, GMOs, reproductive control, weather manipulation, global warming. These and many other points of entry are the means by which the Gates Foundation is making great strides to control the world by pretending to help improve and save it. Rather than promote real food sovereignty and address the underlying political and economic issues that breed poverty, Gates and Company has instead embraced the promotion of corporately owned and controlled agriculture and medicine paradigms that will only further enslave the world's most impoverished. It is abundantly evident that GMOs have ravaged already impoverished people groups by destroying their native agriculture systems, as has been seen in India. Some may say Gates endeavors are all about the money, while others may say they are about power and control. Perhaps it is a combination of both, where Gates is still in the business of promoting his own commercial investments, which includes buying shares in Monsanto, while simultaneously investing in programs to promote Monsanto. Whatever the case may be, there is simply no denying that Gates now has a direct interest in seeing Monsanto succeed in spreading GMOs around the world. And since Gates is openly facilitating Monsanto's growth into new markets through his humanitarian efforts, it is clear that the Gates family is in bed with Monsanto. While at first glance, depopulation programs may seem like a good idea to promote the reduction of mouths to feed worldwide, what they ignore are the root causes of overpopulation. High birth rates are the direct result of poor living standards of the areas, and in countries where malnutrition has been reduced and the incidence of child death lowered, birth rates have also lessened. The third world, in particular, is being forcefully relieved of natural resources and exploited for cheap labor, and is in fact no doubt seized by elite landowners and major corporations as only maintaining maximum profitability as long as it is kept in abject poverty. The strategy of underdevelopment is the term used by agriculture economist Harry Cleaver. Rather than offering the people in rich countries such as Brazil, in actuality one of the richest countries in the world, an equitable portion of profits made through the use of their resources, they are manipulated and kept at the razor edge between starvation and profitability. Depopulation organizations propagandas that we are experiencing a crisis of epic proportions, that the world is reaching the point where it can no longer support the number of people living on it. In many instances, population may in fact be economically beneficial and tending to a long-term increase of arable land and per capita rather than per corporation income. Also, located is a current usage of approximately 0.3% of the planet's surface for human habitation and amount sustainable with no limit to growth on site. United Nations and U.S. Department of Agriculture statistics show that world food production has increased more rapidly than population growth in recent years. While Colin Clark, former director of the Agricultural Economic Institute of Oxford University, has stated that farmers could currently support 7 times the current population of the Earth, or 21 times the current population at Japanese standards of food consumption. The world's food problem does not arise from any physical limitation on potential output or any danger of unduly stressing the environment. The limitations on abundance are to be found in social and political structures of nations and in the economic relations among them. The unexploited global food resources are there, between Cancer and Capricorn. The successful husbandry of that resource depends on the will and actions of men. President Eisenhower secretly commissioned a group of scholars known as the Jason Society to review the conclusions of the 57th Symposium. The members of the Jason Society are in fact part of the secretive Illuminati group known as the Order of the Quest. The same individuals who formed the Jason Society were also key members on the Council on Foreign Relations known as the Wise Men. Not surprisingly, the Jason Society agreed with the symposium's conclusions and drafted 3 proposals for Eisenhower's consideration. The 3 proposals were labeled Alternative 1, Alternative 2, and Alternative 3. Eisenhower rejected Alternative 1 because it involved the use of nuclear weapons. However, Eisenhower did approve the implementation of Alternative 2 and 3. Alternative 2. In order to preserve the best of humanity when the supposed self-destruction of the Earth takes place around the year 2000, the Jason Society proposed that a vast network of underground cities be built in order to secure living quarters for the chosen Illuminati elite, high-level cooperative politicians, and selected military elements. Underground cities are also cohabited by extraterrestrial alien groups that the secret government has made treaties with for technology exchange and human-alien hybrid breeding programs. The idea of the Earth self-destructing around the turn of the century due to overpopulation was perhaps an early cover story for the justification of the underground cities. In the 1950s and 60s, the American public was led to believe that the continuance of government in the event of worldwide nuclear war was a logical reason for underground facilities. But we now know that the entire Soviet and American Cold War and MAD, mutual assured destruction scenario, was an orchestrated Illuminati deception to bleed both Russian and American citizens of their wealth in order to finance black budget operations, secret technology developments, underground city construction, genetic engineering projects, time and space travel research, and anti-gravity flying saucer spacecraft development. Another possible reason may have to do with information that the Illuminati obtained from aliens in 1947 following the Roswell crash. The aliens may have warned the secret government of the inbound trajectory of a huge planet named Nibiru, causing earthquakes, volcanoes, tidal waves, and Earth movements of cataclysmic and biblical proportions. The American public, kept in the dark about this in the underground construction plans, would have to fend for themselves on the surface when the bad times came. It's also possible that the inbound Nibiru cataclysm scenario is or was a disinformation ploy. Based on 1989 information, it was claimed that there were at least 75 underground cities in existence below the soil of America, interconnected by high speed frictionless trains called maglev trains, magnetic levitation. The former Atomic Energy Commission had also constructed 22 separate underground cities for their own use. In 1995, Phil Schneider said that there were 129 underground cities, and in May of year 2001, Stuart Swerdlow, former mind control Montauk boy, claimed that there now exists 133 underground cities in North America. Albert also claims that there are many hundreds of underground cities and bases built worldwide. Alternative 3. Due to the access to certain alien technologies, including interplanetary space flights, which became available to the American government as a result of the Greater Treaty signed by President Eisenhower and aliens in 1954, the Jason Society proposed that operational bases should be set up on the Moon and Mars, which would also provide a safe sanctuary for the highest of the elites when the self-destruction of the earth was going to take place a little after the turn of the new century. I think they talk about the aliens. I think it's the demons, the fallen angels, and Satan. And then they say self-destruction of the earth is the tribulation that is coming at the end times, which is after May 14th this year. The tribulation will come, and that means the self-destruction of the earth. And the God's wrath right before that, which is I think maybe the God's wrath will come towards the end of this month and at the beginning of next month, which is May. That's just my guessing. It's not a concrete prediction. It's just me guessing the time frame here. Bases on the moon and Mars have indeed been built and have been in operation since the late 1950s. All three alternatives included recommendations for population control. They included birth control, sterilization, and the introduction of deadly microbes to reduce or otherwise slow the growth of the Earth's population. Bioengineered diseases, AIDS, Ebola, Gulf War illness, and many other new diseases were intentionally bioengineered in laboratories that are mostly found in the U.S. and include the Army's secretive facilities at Fort Detrick, Maryland. Doctors Lancy and Garth Nicholson have done a great deal of research and investigation into the cause and treatment of Gulf War illness, since they and their daughter, who was a helicopter flight nurse in 1991 Gulf War, all came down with GWI. In 1996, the Nichols published a paper which states their deep suspicions that GWI is due to bioengineered pathogen and that a hidden population control agenda appears to be in place. Some bioengineered pathogens were designated to target certain ethnic groups for elimination. These groups likely include blacks, Hispanics, Black Africans, Native Americans, and homosexuals. The preferred elimination method to introduce disease is via vaccinations. Dr. Len Horowitz firmly established in his 1995 book, Emerging Viruses, that the HIV virus which causes AIDS was introduced and spread throughout the majority of black population in Africa via the World Health Organization during their mandatory smallpox vaccine campaigns of 1976 to 1980s. The pathogens which produce Gulf War illness were introduced to a limited number of Gulf War troops via special vaccinations not recorded on the troops' official vaccination records for anthrax and other supposed dangers posed by Saddam Hussein. It was a CIA test run to see how many Gulf troops would succumb to the disease and how quickly they might die off. The results have been somewhat disappointing for the CIA Illuminati planners. They thought their new little bugs would wipe out a lot of people a lot faster than it has. Eventually, the United States military has to be eliminated because they are seen as a threat by Illuminati planners when they kick in their plans to dissolve the United States and incorporate the former United States into the new 10 region states of America, which will include Canada and Mexico. Retired Army Flight Nurse Joyce Riley presented damning Department of Defense classified secret documentation to an audience at Granada Ballroom in Tarzana, California on July 1st, 1999, which supported the contention that the military intentionally inoculated Gulf War troops with the pathogens that eventually caused Gulf War illness as part of an insidious program directed by the CIA called MKUltra. Domestically, the strategy is to make the public believe that bioattacks by foreign terrorists is inevitable, and when it happens, the government will say that they have tried to warn us all along. The similar tactic is being used by the government to acclimate the public to the notion that these new bugs are showing up everywhere: birds in New York, wild deer and antelope in national parks, etc., and that they are being spread by international travel, etc. Starting in December of 1997, this administration of Illuminati puppets have been seeding stories into print and electronic outlets about the growing fear of anthrax attack and the need to protect the troops. When it comes to the public, however, former CIA Director John Dutch told CNN in July of 1999 that the government wasn't prepared for that task, so further preparations need to be taken. I guess we are supposed to believe that the military staging of mock battles in the U.S. cities is also part of the government's protection plans for us against those nasty foreign terrorists. 9/11 attack of America. The staged and planned attacks of the World Trade Center and Pentagon buildings were deliberate acts orchestrated by Illuminati planners using naive Arab dupes, the terrorists, to pull off a suicide mission in which they were allowed, guided, and facilitated by hidden intelligence agents and operatives. They are using these orchestrated rules to stampede the public into accepting Big Brother control and IT programs, along with the stripping away of constitutional guarantees and liberties under the guise of anti-terrorist legislation. The dissemination of biowarfare agents in America to reduce population needed a convenient cover, and the terrorist scenario provided that. The growing number of websites and well-written articles that are exposing the details of this deception from the planted bombs in the WTC towers to the stand-down of military air defense forces while the hijacked planes were en route makes it abundantly clear that the attacks of September 11, 2001 were a ruse, a charade, a setup that even a child should recognize. The elite's belief system and values. The elite believe they are a more advanced form of human. In order to justify their belief, they grafted Darwin's theories of biological evolution onto social organization to create social Darwinism. Over the centuries, they have referred to the public variously as cattle, sheep, and eats, as Pluto did in the Republic. And social Darwinism is merely the modern expression to this attitude and their elitist belief system. Under this belief system, only those that have proven their worth over many generations of dominance and control are worthy of entrance into high elite circles. The elite throughout history, in support of belief in their own superiority over the common person, have practiced interbreeding among themselves. They do this to preserve intelligence, love of power, and above all, the ruthlessness and willingness to kill as required. They still practice this today. As also along similar lines, they believe in and practice of eugenics on the public to control the population and to make them docile, controlled, stupid, and compliant. Having been exposed by Hitler's atrocities, the elite went underground. For example, by renaming eugenics quarterly to social biology in 1969. Psychopathy among elites. This is not a belief, but more of a sobering fact that must be considered when evaluating the values and actions of the elite. It has been well established, as shown by Andrew Nobususki in his book Political Ponerology, that the elite and those that are most capable of rising to the top of a system based on money are psychopathic. This includes leaders in all centers of power, including business and politics. As a psychopaths, they have no conscience, lust for power and control, and are literally capable of anything. The ends justify the means. Because the elite truly believe that the ends justifies the means, and the facts that they are for the most part psychopathic, they have absolutely no problem lying to the public. This is also known as the ethics of war, where the only morally abhorrent act is losing. Mystery religions and occult. As hard as it is to imagine, the elite practice a form of pagan religion based on the mystery school religions of Sumer and Babylon, under which they seek to achieve godhood. Equally important is the use of religion to control the masses, and to that end, they create exoteric visible religions for the masses while embedding in those religions exoteric hidden meanings that only those that are enlightened or illuminated, as they call it, are able to understand. Consequently, the ancient symbols used thousands of years ago can still be seen in religion, business, and the media today. Collectivism as social control. After experimenting for hundreds of years with different forms of social organization, the elite have concluded that collectivism is the best form of social control. For this reason, and according to the United Nations, totalitarian China is considered the model state for the future. Overpopulation. The elite have long viewed a rising population as a threat to their dominance. They realized that eventually a large number of people will inevitably overflow and remove them from power. They are particularly concerned with the middle class, whose intelligence and capacity to organize makes them the biggest threat. Consequently, the elite plan to destroy the middle class and make all of the public equally poor and thus incapable of rebelling. As written on the Georgia Guidestones, they want a global population of just 500 million. This means 6+ billion people must die over the coming century. Multi-generational planning. The evolution of society is not something the elite can leave to chance, since society could evolve in thousands of different and unpredictable ways. If they were ever to allow this, they might lose their control and dominance over us. In order to continue their position as the dominant minority, they plan decades and even centuries in advance. Revelation of the method. The elites do tell us through their books and publications, movies, and news releases what they are doing. It is called revelation of the method. If you are too stupid to recognize it for what it is, that is your problem from their point of view. It is a form of ritual mocking of the victim. Sorry about the long video this time, but there is a lot of information that I would like to share, and if you have not known yet, now you know what's been happening behind the scene. And these people in front of the public, they act like they are the best people in the world. I think they thought that they are the best actors and actresses in the world, but actually, um, I think at least a small percentage of the people like us who are always has been awake, that we know what's been hiding behind their masks. Um, no matter how they brand their, rebrand their corporations, or how they create a beautiful name for their corporation and sounded like they are helping the poor, helping the public, but a name is just a name, and the mask is just a mask. When you take off the mask, everything's there. You cannot hide, you cannot run. So, okay, anyway, I'll talk to you guys in the next video. Bye.